Okay, I am different. I stand on the truth of Jesus. You guys did amazing. I've been really just continually appreciative of you guys. You've been welcoming. You've been just showing me around different places. Thank you for doing that. And if I have not gotten to know you this week, I really want to do that this week if I can. But that being said, last night we talked about how Peter made a bold declaration about just how strange Jesus is. You remember what it was? Here's what it said. It said the words, it's coming up on the screen. He said, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." You are the Christ, the Son of the living God. That next slide on there. I think that is such a bold declaration. And it is strange to follow Jesus. But I can tell you it's worth every moment that you do so. But that being said, I wonder if any of you have messed up, and of course we've all messed up, right? But that moment that the words leave your lips, or the moment that you crossed the line, you just wished you could just click delete. Anybody out there? Yeah, right as soon as it happened, you're like, delete! No, I didn't mean to say that. My wife, she was telling me the other day, you have absolutely no compassion, Shane. And I know I do lack in that area. I have something like a spider web. That's everyone say it with me. That's strange. Let's do it again. That's strange. I was testing you to see if you get it right. So, with that in mind, Christina said, "Shane, you have no compassion." And it really is true. One day I was driving. My daughter, you saw her here yesterday and this morning. She's 10 years old now, but back when she was 4, she was all like, she had a dress, you know, like head to toe. She had the ruffles. She had the shoulder ruffles. She had everything back in pre-K. Not no more. She is not a dressy girl kind of girl. So she was all dressed up and ready for pre-K. And there I am driving along the road. And I'm going out the driveway like normal. And just as I'm driving down the road, Emma says in the back, "Daddy, what is that that's out in the road?" "It's a dead cat." And I just keep driving. It's a dead cat. Why would I care? Okay, so I'm driving along. It's a dead cat. 5 seconds later, I get this scream in the back of the truck, and I'm going, "Oh my goodness, daughter of mine, what is wrong with you, child? Why would you scream like that? You said it was a dead cat!" "I know, it wasn't just a cat though, it was a kitten. It's okay." "No!" She is freaking out, and I'm like, "Baby doll, it got ran over. It got hit by a car!" She is hysterical. And I'm like, "Just get over it." Delete. I know, she's 4. Delete. I just wish I could click delete. Could you imagine though, if I'm driving down the road, and this didn't happen, okay? Just don't worry about this. But if and I get out, and oh my goodness, I find what I ran over. It's not just any cat that I ran over. It's the neighbor's cat, Fluffy. Oh, Fluffy. The Hagans, that was their beloved family pet. They've got a ton of different pets, but this is their beloved pet. So can you just imagine if I go up on their door and, well, wrong hand. What would you do in this moment? Well, hey, I'll tell you what. I can just picture them answering the door and being crushed. And I'm going, "Okay, I know this is bad. I'm so sorry I ran over your cat. But I have, what's it worth, $1? Here's $1. I can pay $1, and that would exchange in payment for what I just did to this cat. Would that work?" Okay, well, for this next part, does anyone have an air pump? Maybe I could just re-inflate. Does anyone have a, Tyler, do you have an air pump? No, you do not. What if I just re-inflate, just put my mouth on, not that end, on it? No, I will not do that. That would not work either. Well, what if I just took and replaced same markings, but if you get spray paint, it can work out perfectly, right? None of those things work. Here's the deal. When it comes to a dead cat and many other things in life, sometimes you cross the line and you can't click delete. Oh, Peter knew this all too well. I mean, he was talking with the disciples. You remember yesterday's passage that Peter answered, "You are the Messiah. You're the Christ. You're the Son of the living God." He made a bold declaration about who Jesus was. But Jesus gathered his disciples up. It's the night before he is crucified. And he gathers them around in what is known as the Last Supper. It is why we take communion, the bread and the cup. And he tells the 12, this very night, all of you are going to fall away from me. Oh, but you remember from yesterday's message, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. Jesus, how could you say something like that, right? Peter is on fire for God. How could he say that about me? Peter thought. And this is what it says. Matthew 26, verse 34 and 35. I'm going to back up to verse 33. Peter replied, "Even if all fall away on account of you, I never will." Everyone else might fall away. Jesus, I know you're the Son of God, but you're wrong. Can you just imagine? The audacity. But he was so convinced that Jesus is the Son of God, and he was so convinced of himself and his own abilities, his own power, his own authority, he thought, you know what? Jesus, you're wrong. Even if everyone else falls away from you, I never will. I tell you the truth, Jesus answered, this very night, before the rooster crows, you will disown me. Now, to disown is to have no part with, saying, I never knew him. I will have nothing to do with that man. He's no longer my family. He's no longer my friend. He is a nobody to me. That's what he's saying when he says, you will disown me, not just once, but 3 times. But Peter declared. Now, when you see that word declared, I just picture him getting louder. Because that's what works well, doesn't it? Oh my goodness. He declared, even if I have to die with you, I will never disown you. And all the other disciples said the same. Peter, that night, well, let me back up. Judas Iscariot, you know the story. He was paid 30 shekels of silver to identify who Jesus was as he was praying later that night in the garden. He would identify him to the guards, and the guards would arrest him and have this crazy, ridiculous trial at night. Judas betrayed him with a kiss on the cheek. It was a customary greeting, but it was a greeting of betrayal. He completely failed. Got paid 30 shekels of silver. Well, Peter, while Jesus later on was arrested, Jesus is being questioned. He's being questioned about various different things, and they're trying to trip him up in his words so that they can just go ahead and stone him. So they can go ahead and send him off and put him out of their misery. And where was Peter? Well, if Peter was owning up to what he said, I will never disown you, then he would be standing here between Jesus and the crowd saying, no, I was with this man for 3 years. I have watched him over and over and over, miracle after miracle. He called me out on the water, out of the boat, and I walked on water. I am an eyewitness of this. I did this. I saw this. I know this. This is my Jesus. Don't you lay a hand on him. Even if I have to die with him, I'm never going to disown him. But that's not where Peter was. It says that Peter was out in the courtyard by a fire made of coals. Now there's some very powerful imagery given here. Because the reality is, these coals, if you think about it, they illuminate, and the light is right in front of them. If you're standing by a fire, the light is right in front of you, but you're surrounded by what? Darkness. Think about this. Jesus was right there. He had the light right in front of him, and yet he was over here in the dark. He's surrounded by these people staring at his face. Can you just imagine this moment? Peter is afraid for his life. Where he's standing is already an indicator of what he's about to do. And he looks, all these people look at him and they say, one of them says, "You were with that man, Jesus, weren't you?" No. No, I was not. It was the first time he disowned. Denied even knowing who this man was. No, I was not with that man. I have no association with him. Later on that night, "You were with that man, weren't you?" I don't know what you're talking about. Still later on, these people are staring him down. He's fearing for his life. And they ask him a third time, "Do you know this man, Jesus?" "I never even knew the man." Just imagine in that moment when the rooster crowed, just as Jesus said, just as Peter told Jesus he was wrong about, it says Jesus and Peter locked eyes. That they looked at each other, and he saw the master over there being questioned, getting ready to be beaten and crucified. This pain, this failure that he had on his heart was so catastrophic. It said he just wept bitterly. He could not bear this. Let me ask you something real quick. How many of you have something like this on your mind? You've got something you've been dealing with maybe for a long, long time of that failure, of that catastrophic blunder. And maybe, no, it wasn't a direct thing like you denied Jesus, but there is something I know that we have all dealt with that we are just holding on to, going, "He would never forgive me because of this." That's exactly how Peter felt. Jesus was later taken, and he had to walk up the hill with a cross after being beaten, and I could get into a whole deal about that, about the dignity of the cross, but he died on the cross in the most painful way known to man. Peter was still holding on to this. Jesus was even buried in the tomb, just as he said he would. And he rose from the grave. He even appeared to the disciples and said, "Look, here's the holes in my hands. Feel this hole in my side from the spear." Oh, they were all rejoicing, but Peter was still holding on to this. Peter couldn't bear it. Did you know that Judas and Peter had something in common? Judas and Peter both failed. And they both wished they could have quit belief. With that in mind, what did they do? Judas tried to pay the money back, but that didn't fix it. So he hung himself. He couldn't bear the weight of his failure. He couldn't bear the weight of his sin. And what's Peter do? Peter tells the disciples, he says, "Hey, I'm going out fishing." Now this should be, there's something if you really study in on Peter's life. Where was Peter when Jesus called him in the first place? He's out fishing. Peter, at least for a time, went back to his old life. But he's still holding on to this. They go out and fish. The disciples joined him. In fact, the 12 are together on the boat. Minus Judas. The 11 were there together on the boat, and they throw the net over and over and over again. And all night long, be caught. And in this time, if you don't catch, you don't eat. You're hungry. You're tired. You can imagine being hungry and tired. Can I get an amen? Yeah. But imagine fishing all night and the frustration. And picture this. It's at night, so is it in the light or in the dark? It's in the dark. There's so many amazing pictures we can get from this if we just dig deeper. All night long, they'll catch a fish. And then the Son of God, Jesus Christ, is the Savior. But it's like he disguised himself. They didn't know who he was. The sun starts to rise. It becomes light out. And they still haven't caught any fish. And Jesus calls out to them. Jesus is full of shenanigans sometimes. Okay? Because he calls out to them. He goes, friends, haven't you caught any fish? Can you imagine the disciples after fishing all night and hearing that? No, we have not. Get out of here. No, they were calling back and forth. And he goes, well, tell you what. Jesus says, throw your net out on the other side. Peter's heard that before. So what do? They throw it on the other side, and there's this miraculous catch of fish. It's weighing down the boat because of the abundance of what Jesus provided in this amazing little bit of physical provision. It was a picture of what was to come. Because they come onto the shore and they realize it's the Lord. And it's an interesting thing. Jesus was standing there with the fire made of coals. What is Jesus up to in this moment? Well, they took the fish. They all get their fill and they eat. And Jesus knew that Peter was holding on to this. He knew that something wasn't finished with him. And he looks to Peter, not to him, but he asks him a very unique question. Do you love me? Yes, Lord. You know that I love you. So feed my sheep. Second time he asks, do you love me? Yes, Lord. You know that I love you. So take care of my sheep. First time he asks, do you love me? And Peter is obviously hurt because when someone asks you 3 times, they just don't believe you. That's what he was feeling in that moment. And he says, anyways, Lord, you know all things. You know everything. And you know that I love you. Feed my sheep. I want you to understand something very clearly as followers of Jesus. Jesus does not want perfect followers. He wants forgiven followers. And I don't know what it looks like in your life. I don't know what it is that you've been holding on to perhaps for years and years and years, maybe your whole life, what this looks like in your life. But he does not want you holding on to this. Do you understand the gravity of that? We don't have to be perfect before the Master. We don't have to get ourselves all polished up and all perfect so that we can approach him. He approaches us right where we are with whatever is in our hands. With whatever is in our hearts. And he asks, do you love me?